Hi, this is Val Hart, the real Dr. Doolittle, and today I'm talking with Alecia Evans. She's been professionally transforming the relationship between dogs and their humans since 2001. Her philosophy is to harness your dog's energy to unleash their greatest potential and your own. Never feeling right about choking dogs and unsuspecting puppies to train them, Alecia invented the Walk-in-Sync Humane Dog Walking and Training System as the gold standard of training tools in order to end the choking and the pain caused to dogs during traditional training and walking methods. As a former host of the award-winning grassroots Aspen TV series, The Whole Animal, an alternative approach to animal care, Alecia takes a natural approach to dog training and health care. Her work has been featured on Fox and Friends, The Sandra Glosser Show, New York One, and in Aspen Magazine, DogTipper.com, the New York Daily News, and the Wolf Report. And she's been interviewed on numerous radio programs around the country. She's a training expert for DogTipper.com and Only Natural Pet Store. Alecia believes prevention and proper education about the best training methods and tools will begin to limit the number of dogs given up for adoption due to behavior issues. Her website is dogwalkinsync.com. I'll spell that, DOGWALKINSYNC.com, dogwalkinsync.com. Well, welcome, Alecia. I'm so glad you're on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Val. I'm really excited.
This is so much fun. When I saw your system and what you have created, what you invented, I was so inspired because it makes so much sense to me. When I was trying to train my puppy Einstein, my genius in a dog Einstein, to walk properly on a leash, it was really difficult. And and I know a lot of tools. I have a lot of techniques. I have things I know. And it was really still very hard, and I know a lot of my clients struggle with this, and a lot of dog people, probably every dog person on the planet, is struggling with this. And you got the brainstorm to create a train humanely approach to walking your dog. So how did that happen?
Well, it actually started years ago when I had a chocolate lab named Barney, who probably could have been Marley's brother. He was such a beautiful being, but I had no idea how to motivate him. And, as we went to trainers, each trainer, as we weren't getting the results that we wanted, each trainer kept prompting us to use harsher and harsher training methods. And, finally we had to get to the point where I had to use a shock collar, which devastated me. I used it once and I threw it out because I saw the effect that it had on the dog, because it's such an unnatural thing for a dog, obviously, unless they run into, if they're running around in the wild and they run into an electric fence, they'd never have that kind of stimulation in their system ever.
Yeah.
So I had been reading a Linda Tellington-Jones book, and one of the things that she had suggested was wrapping the leash around the dog. Now, I'm not sure if I did it the right way, but all I know was that when I took the pressure off of Barney's neck and I took his leash and I wrapped it all the way around him, I'm not kidding you, Val, it was like magic. It was like
wow.
Instantly I got a completely different response out of this dog than having something around his neck. But the only problem was I couldn't walk with the leash wrapped around him because he couldn't go anywhere.
It
was so silly. So I was like, okay, this is fabulous and really interesting, but how are we gonna get anywhere? So I didn't really know what to do, how to proceed with it at the time. But it just kind of was a seed that sort of planted itself in me that said, wow, Linda was pointing out that the dog had probably lost the connection of awareness to its entire body.
Yeah.
And when I did that and I saw Barney collect himself, I could just literally feel it energetically, that all of a sudden this dog was like, oh, this is totally different. Okay, and he's looking at me going, what do you want me to do? So I knew that there was something in that. And then I hired an animal behaviorist, because all the trainers that I had worked with at the time said, don't you dare, treat the dog with treats. You'll be struck down by lightning. God's going to come down and appear before you and tell you what a horrible dog parent you are. That's literally, I was so afraid, So I found this wonderful woman who was a dog behaviorist, and she asked me, she goes, have you ever used food with this dog? And I was like, no. Everybody told me I would, be struck by lightning if I did.
The number one cardinal sin.
Oh, my God. Well, she said, but does it motivate him? I said, motivate him? I said, he'd, learn how to drive if you give him treats. I mean, he just is, that's how motivated. And literally it was like I had a dog with bionic hearing, where he couldn't even hear me before, didn't even care. You had a treat, all of a sudden this dog was like,
you're number one.
What do you want me to do? You want me to do your homework for you? Do you want me to write your bills for the month? Do you want me to cook your breakfast? What do you want me to do? And I was like, wow, okay, so there's two huge misconceptions that I had learned about, that all of a sudden I was like, well, wow, okay, maybe training around the neck isn't the most effective thing for a lot of dogs. And, maybe you can use food to stimulate the motivation to bring the animal back into balance, but you don't necessarily have to keep using food.
Right.
So years went by, and I got into Qigong, and I got into communication work with animals, and then I kind of moved out to Colorado after September 11th, and a client of mine had asked if I would train his dog. And I was like, well, I kind of remembered it from when I had trained Barney, but I wouldn't have called myself a professional dog trainer by any means. But I just sort of said, okay, look, I'm not going to charge him a lot, and I'll see what the dog has to say, and we'll figure out a way to communicate that really works.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful, because one thing that I learned from the animal communication work is dogs' strongest form, probably any animal's strongest form, even humans' strongest form of communication, is telepathy.
Yes.
And so I was like, what would happen if I used a clear picture in training this dog and gave it a clear picture of what I want as opposed to what I don't? And then all of a sudden, now I'm realizing, okay, here's another thing. Here's another tool I can use to help get these dogs better. If I show the dog what I want, and if I tell the person that I'm working with, picture what you want, not what you don't want, all of these things were starting to come together. But the one thing that I was noticing was with my training, I was like, I still don't like these collars, because if the dog doesn't get it right away, anything around its neck, I mean, to me it's so interesting, because I just kind of go by common sense more than science. So I just sit there and say, well, if I put something around my neck and I'm choking myself, am I going to actually be able to breathe because now I am oxygen deprived? Not breathe, but am I going to be able to think clearly?
Yes.
Because my breathing is deprived.
Yes.
So I kept asking the universe the question, what else is possible? Because this part of it, it's not really working for me. And I made a promise to Barney years ago that I would do whatever it took to help make the world better and easier for dogs in training. And one day somebody recommended a front clip harness to me, and I was sold. I had a client's chocolate lab. She was about 11 months old. She literally pulled me out of the car and pulled me to the pet store. I couldn't control her. I mean, she was so strong. We went in the pet store. In the aisle of the pet store, I put a front clip harness on this dog, and we walked out of there under 3 minutes. This dog was no longer pulling.
Wow.
And I went, oh, my God, okay, all these years later, here's the connection. It's a new connection. Instead of connecting at the neck, if you're connecting at the front of the chest, the dog is going to read the signal differently. And it's, there's a law in physics that dictates that the further something goes out on a fulcrum, the more energy you have to use to pull it back. So if I'm behind a dog and the dog's pulling, I have to use my energy to pull against that dog's throat to get them back to me. But if I have something clipped at the front, and the dog cannot engage their front legs and put their full power into it, and they feel that there's a pressure in front of them that they actually have to back off of, versus a pressure from behind them that they feel that they can run away from, everything started clicking into place.
Wow.
So I tried a couple of I had sold hundreds of front clip harnesses to my clients, but then I started to realize as a body worker, I was like, you know what, biomechanically, these harnesses are actually cutting across the front of the dog's shoulders.
Yeah.
And where the clip sits, it was sitting underneath their legs, so I had some of my clients were complaining about chafing.
Yes.
So then I just, again, went back to Spirit, and I said, okay, what else is possible? And within 3 months, I had the vision for the shape of the walk-and-sink harness, which they showed me, you know, it's kind of like the way a horse harness looks.
Yeah.
That roundness in the front, and it's kind of like right at the chest plate. And I thought, great, where can I find one?
Yeah.
And I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I just would sit literally and meditate and ask for the information to make training much more humane, meaning, in my opinion of what humane is, never choking the dog, never putting any kind of physical strain on their body that can hurt them, and you know, that's safe and easy to use, and they're happy with it, and it gives them a better body awareness. And then the leash developed because I knew I needed not just the harness, but I knew I needed something to go with it, and I was thinking about, you know, God, if I knot up the leash, I need people to be consistent. And that's when the markers for the leash came up, and they're really, really comfortable. And I thought, wow, this would make any person feel secure if their dog pulls.
Right.
They just hold the handle. No nylon's ripping through their hands. They're calm and relaxed. And if they're calm and relaxed when the dog pulls, then the dog's going to be calm and relaxed.
Yes, that's a critically important point. Because our dogs take cues from us.
Exactly.
And if we're stressed, and of course we're stressed because the dog is pulling and, you know, we feel out of control and we're desperate to, you know, whatever, you know, and so we're caught in that trap, that energetic trap. And then the dog feels our stress.
Exactly.
And they think there's something to be stressed about, but they actually usually miss the point that they're causing our stress. But it's a really hard pattern to break. It
is. And it's funny because that's where I kind of use all of the tools. So the tools that I knew that I needed for me, of when I work with clients, ideally, what do I want to use? And that's really how it kind of all developed, because I thought I'd be able to go find it in a store, and I had no desire, you know, to get into manufacturing and prototyping and all the different things and all the different changes. You know, an initial conception that you have actually goes through to get you to your end product.
Yes.
And I don't know, I guess it was my calling, you know, to develop it and put it together, because in all the years that I've been training, I've never seen something that works as a combination. I've seen things, you know, this leash or this collar or this thing or that thing, but if you really look at it from the energetics and the science of the energetics, if you're in front of the dog and if you have clear boundaries with the dog, which the leash also provides you, and you connect those two things, well, we started seeing, I mean, in minutes. What it used to take me 2 and 3 weeks to teach people to do because they needed to be consistent with their dogs, we were finding in under 5 minutes. We had dogs that were chronic consistent pullers and people that were actually afraid, you know, now to bring their dogs to the park because of that. In under 5 minutes, we were changing these dogs' behaviors. And everything I've learned scientifically, and I've talked to some, you know, trainers that have been training for 30, 40 years, no way, if you're going to train a dog's behavior, it's going to take you at least 6 to 12 months for consistency. And I'm going, I don't get it, because we're changing these habits without choking the dog, without any fear, actually, Val, honestly, without any correction. We're not even pulling on the harness. We're just literally using the boundary of the leash and the harness together, and all the person does is stop and waits for the dog to correct themselves. And that's when I started to realize this is unbelievable. Because these dogs are so smart. And they are extraordinarily energetically sensitive.
Yes.
And so if you hold the right cue with the right tool, the dog will actually figure it out. And so instead of constantly having to apply the correction, you're creating a thinking dog who already knows how to correct themselves because they know what their choices are.
Wow.
I know. I was like, this is amazing.
It is amazing.
It is.
Really is.
Yep.
So I want to go back. You know,
sure.
I can feel our listener, some of them, not all of them, some of them are leaping for joy, wondering where they can get this. But you know, I can feel some of them going, well, wait a minute. You know, the traditional collar has worked. You know, choke chains work, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about what actually happens when we have the older style, the traditional style of training a dog with a collar of some kind, or even a halty, you know, something around their nose. Let's talk a little bit about that. Why is that really a problem, and what makes that method of training dangerous?
Okay, well, think about how, and I'm going to apply this to humans because while we can look at what happens with the dogs, for a lot of us, we won't naturally associate, you know, oh, well, wow, you know, okay, the dog would feel it this way. Because a lot of it, and I know, like, when I grew up, my dog was a dog. I mean, I didn't take into any account that he could feel pain, that he could, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I'll bring it to humans first is, okay, would it make sense for us? Would you do it for yourself or on your child? Would
you do that for your child?
Exactly. So let's kind of look at like a typical.
I know some parents would be saying, oh, yeah, choke chains and harnesses on my child.
Yeah.
Might be the only answer. I don't know. But
some of them might. But here's the thing that'll happen. You put a choke chain on yourself, right? Now imagine you've got cold steel that doesn't bend.
Yeah.
And somebody just gets really pissed off at you, and with all their might, they yank on that chain.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God!
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, would that create more fear?
Yes.
Or would that create, you know, a peaceful awareness and understanding?
No. It would create a lot of fear, and you now have the trauma of the neck injury. And
exactly.
It's not just the sensitive skin around the neck, but it's also misaligned bones.
Exactly.
You know, it's pulled your neck out of the way. It's the circulation problem. You
exactly.
know, your damaged trachea.
Exactly.
You know, I hear so many of my dog clients come in, and my dog is having trouble breathing, and when I tune in energetically and feel what's going on, they've been choked. You know,
exactly.
They have scar tissue. That area is narrow. It's hard for them to breathe. And unfortunately, at that point, there's not a lot of options.
Exactly.
You know, it's so
and the thing is that most of us, because we are not of the dog species, and because we see them as something different and outside of us, and because we take a trainer, just like in this country, you know, we take a doctor's word over our own. If we're taking a trainer's word over our own, oh, the dog's fine, doesn't feel it, this is the way you do it, and you don't know any better.
If you don't know any better.
Yeah, if you don't know any better, you're going to say, okay, well, this is what the trainer told me to do.
That's what they said, yeah.
Exactly. And there's so much soft tissue, cartilage, veins, blood vessels, tissue, bones, as you said, in that area, that even though, let's say for the last 60 years, you know, that's been the paradigm of how and what you do with your dog, it doesn't mean that it's correct. It just means that we haven't exactly evolved in that area to realizing how much damage you can do. And the biggest part of it is that most of us will be unaware that, like, one choke could actually pop a vertebrae out in the back of the neck, not necessarily see it, not even have any clue it could be there, and maybe a year or two down the line, now your dog starts developing a back end problem. Or they start developing an eye problem, or they start developing a breathing problem. And so the biggest issue is that because of the society, we don't necessarily connect things. We actually separate them, you know, just like you have a doctor for your ear or your knee or your eye or your, you know, toenail.
Yeah.
Instead of what used to be like the general practitioners that would look at the whole system and say, okay, I see where the issue is.
Yeah.
No one's done enough research to not prove that there's actually damage going on.
Yeah.
You know, so I just looked at it and I saw it as common sense because energetically to me and watching my dog and being tuned in, you know, to my clients' dogs,
yeah.
I was like, this just isn't right. There has to be a better way.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's common sense-wise. And then there's other theories with and even of just a flat collar. You know, I've seen dogs. I was in New York City in April, and I saw this pit bull puppy, man. He was so determined to go where he was going to go. And even on a flat collar, his person's just dragging behind him, letting him pull. Yeah. And we don't realize the damage that can be done.
Right.
Then you have your prawn collars, which to me, some dogs will still pull so hard that those prongs will actually puncture their skin. Not every dog.
Yeah.
But again, it's another thing around the neck that's actually going to cause more fear than it is understanding and respect.
Yeah.
And mostly when the dogs don't have that on, they'll still pull. Yeah. So it hasn't, it's temporarily stopped, it's put a Band-Aid on it, but it hasn't cleared it.
Right. No, it didn't clear the underlying issue.
Exactly.
Which is, as you mentioned earlier, a boundary and energy and connection to your body and at peace and feeling secure and at ease. You know, I have another theory, Alecia. It's not just a theory. It's what dogs have actually told me happens. A lot of times the dogs that come to me are aggressive, you know, especially when they're out on a walk, or they suffer from a lot of anxiety from being on a walk. You know, so they're even hard to take out. And when I talk to them, what they tell me is that when they're out and they see another person, a stranger or another dog or something going on outside, that all of a sudden they hurt. You know, it's like they connect what they're looking at, you know, and the high excitement of, oh, look, there's some, you know, whatever, and they get overstimulated. And then all of a sudden something is biting their neck. And in the dog world, what bites their neck? Another dog, a fight with another dog, right? Yeah. So what it does is it feels like a neck bite, and it gets connected in their mind with the other person or stranger or another dog or something like that. And they think that somehow that other person or dog is hurting them. It's like they don't even sometimes get in their excitement that it's their person pulling on their collar, you know, and it's pinching them or it's pronging and biting into them, and you know, so it all gets wrapped up in this major anxiety and fear, and it looks like it becomes a very aggressive dog on the leash, and it's actually their person that caused it in the first place by hurting them.
Exactly.
You know, and you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean, and you know, in that figure, the highest energetic state that you can be in, that's kind of total frenzy. It's a mix of excitement, anxiety. You know, you can't think straight.
No.
You can't think straight at all. And you have something around your neck, so you're not really tuned into your body, but you just see this thing in front of you.
Right. You see what's in front of you. Yeah. You're in a hyper-frenzied state, which is completely unstable. You know, it's unstable. It's, like you said, it's got a lot of confliction in there, you know, survival as well. And they're being hurt, and they can't think, and they can't breathe. And
they're picking up the pictures from their person,
right,
who's also in that frenzied state, so they're giving energy to this picture that their dog's going to fight or bite the other dog, and then the dog's like, okay, if you want me to bite the other dog, okay, I will, but yet you're
biting me, my neck is hurting.
Exactly, so it's a big chaotic mess energetically.
Yes.
And, you know, even though people are saying, well, I don't want this to happen, and I don't want it, it's like, really? Well, what's your picture?
Yeah.
Well, I'm scared.
Yeah.
okay, so obviously the tools that you're using aren't working for you so well.
Yeah.
Where you're able to see a different reality.
Yes.
And so, you know, the other one of the other apparatuses that people use is the Nose Halter.
Yeah, the Halter. Yeah.
Well, I put that on Barney, and thank God, you know, as a body worker, I could see changes subtly before it became a big problem, but Barney ended up going to the chiropractor and had 3 vertebrae out in his neck. Mm. And I thought, okay, we're not doing this one either. Because that as well, while it will work for certain dogs, again, now you're focusing the dog's attention to such a narrow point, but you're not taking into account the whole dog and letting it be calm and relaxed as it's moving into this situation and giving it its head and giving it the proper tools so that it stays calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
So that's another tool, you know, that I had used, and I thought, I just don't think that this is in the best interest of the dogs, not because they don't work, but because should it cause any kind of imbalance in the neck, most people are just not going to be aware of the subtleties enough to realize that their dog's neck is out of balance, and that's going to cause other problems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's, you know, that was my experience with that particular device, and I thought, no, there still has to be a better way, you know, because dogs in the wild, the only time they would control each other by the nose is if there's, you know, usually a puppy involved, and mom will go and she will grab his snout once, so she just says, don't you ever do that again. Now, the thing, too, that I really kind of noticed in watching and observing the dogs, how they train each other, they're extraordinarily clear. And when they go to correct each other, they're extraordinarily powerful.
Yes.
And they don't care, you know, what the other one says, because in a dog world, it's about survival. Okay? And they'll do it generally once. And that's all it really takes to get a puppy to understand, don't you cross this boundary.
Right.
The issue with humans is that we want to be kind and loving, and it's wonderful, but it's also not extraordinarily clear with boundaries. And so a problem that could have been resolved by one thing said the correct way drags on and on and on, and then there becomes a frustration and a trying to gain power and a losing power and blah, 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 and it turns into a scenario where you're actually fighting against each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I did with these tools was I made it so simple to have the dog feel confident and connected to their body and have the human feel confident and connected to their ability to work with and hold a clear boundary with the dog. That I think that the reason why we get these results so fast is because we're not just using tools that try to change the dog. We're actually utilizing tools that I have literally watched, Val, as the energy of the human instantaneously changes. Because you can see them go from not confident and worried to all of a sudden they, like, lift themselves up. And they don't even realize they're doing it. But it just happens because the light bulb goes off and they go, oh, my God, I got my dog. Okay, maybe I'm back in charge.
We're in control. I don't know.
And I've had to laugh. I was like, I've had people say to me, you know what, I've been in therapy for 15 years. And that was just the actualization of my 15 years in therapy.
Wow.
And it was like, God, this is not what I intended. And it's so beautiful. Yeah. Because you take people from a place of total frustration and feeling powerless the way we've been conditioned to feel powerless. Yeah. And then, you know, that conditioning also tries to make us compensate kind of like violently or like overcompensate. Yeah. And it is so beautiful to watch people almost get entrained to the natural vibration and frequency of the dogs, so that they understand leadership, not from that human, because remember, I mean, dogs aren't out there bombing the world and, you know, trying to kill each other and trying to take over other territory.
Yeah.
So that whole perception of dominance, you know, is a bit misunderstood. But what these dogs are showing and helping these people do is actually come into their authentic power. And I tell you that I can't tell you how many times we've done these 5-minute makeovers, and I swear tears come to my eyes every single time not because the system worked, you know, as a system for training the dog, but to see the shift and the energy connection that opens up as a result of having these people and these dogs utilize the tools just brings tears to my eyes because it changes everything, changes their world.
Yeah.
You know, and that another dog is not going to get choked, and that another human actually, they got it. They got the gift of dog.
The gift of dog. Oh, how brilliant.
You know, and remember, dog is God spelled backwards. It's the only word in human language that is. So it's just, you know, it's like, God, they're here to, you know, they've put me on a quest.
Yeah.
Because of their loyalty and their love and their compassion and their friendship. They've been such incredible teachers to me that to continue exploring and evolving whatever my path is, you know, and to bring it into this where we've got something that's going to raise the bar on training tools and make not only dog training more humane, but help people become more humane.
Yes.
In 3 easy steps. It's like, wow. Oh my God, this is so cool. How did I get so lucky? You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
Me too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, you know, for being open and willing to share this. Because, I mean, a lot of people, and I'm sure you get this with communication work, you know, you have your people that go, oh, well, you're anthropomorphizing these animals. And it's like, really? Really? Maybe you're just not seeing them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, they've animals have always been in my life, and every single one has evolved to me enormously. And it's just, honestly, I mean, when you talk labor of love, this is absolutely and truly for me a labor of love.
I get that. Yeah, I get that, Alecia. Thank you so much for following your guidance and for asking. You know, so many of us, you know, we get trapped in this is how it's always done. You know, we never even question it.
Yeah.
And we should. We need to question things that don't work.
Well, like in the Matrix, Trinity says to Neo, what if the answer was the question?
Good.
And I know when I was a kid, I used to get in a lot of trouble. Why? 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 Why does it work this way? Why does it? And I would exasperate people because I wanted to know the root of their understanding of why they were doing certain things. And, you know, I think it's a huge trap that we fall into that, you know, it's almost when you have a spiritual teacher, the teacher's deepest desire, even though they might not say it on the outside, is that the student become better than the teacher. And in our society, teachers get afraid and they get threatened because here they are teaching these young minds, but they're also conditioning these young minds to follow what they've been taught because that's the way you do it in an established society. But I laugh because I look at it and I say, you know, well, they say that we use basically 10% of our brain. Yeah. And isn't it funny that in school we basically get taught maybe 10% of the truth? Yeah. And everything we do, it's really not about the next generation becoming better in the way that that natural evolvement takes place. We want to condition them to be better, more technologically advanced, all these things, but follow our same paradigm when you do it. And I don't know if the Creator created the world in that way. I don't know. You know? Yeah. I mean, I just keep seeing that question literally is the answer. Yeah. Because as soon as you come to a conclusion, you've cut off all possibilities. True. So if you keep asking the question, what else is possible, and how can it get any better than this, then the universe says, wow, you really want to know more. You know, you want to have more. You want to experience more. Okay, here you go. And I think our fear gets us in so much trouble. You know, and that's why I think so many of these dogs land up getting aggressive, because the people are in fear.
Yeah.
The dog knows one of two things.
Yeah.
You're in charge or I'm in charge.
Right.
That's the leadership way.
Yeah.
So if you're afraid, then I have to be in charge.
Yeah.
So I watch and I see how many dogs have come to me that are aggressive, and when I sit there and I keep looking at them and I keep looking at them and I keep staring in their eyes and I keep connecting with the soul that's in there, they're actually not aggressive. They're actually afraid.
They are.
Because they've been put into a position to have to protect someone from their own fears because the other person isn't realizing, you know, how this dynamic works. And they're choosing their leadership based on fear rather than based on confidence.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've seen, and that's the thing that I think brings the tears to my eyes, of watching someone who was in fear work with their dog, work with these tools, and get into a place of confidence and love and expansion. And witnessing that is truly the thing that brings tears to my eyes, of just going, I don't even have words for this. Like, this is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. Because I know that once they physiologically experience this, they've been changed forever.
Yeah.
And to watch them then consistently experience this shift, and then that they bring that into their lives. I can't tell you how many of my clients have experienced that shift, and then they turn and look at me and go, so will this work with my kids? Will this work with my spouse? Will this work with my boss? And I'm like, well, here's the thing. You're probably not going to put the harness on them, although you'd like to.
Yeah.
But if you can take those skills of natural leadership and confidence that you've just experienced with your dog, and it doesn't have to be an overcompensation on any level. It can be really natural of just holding a clear boundary of what's acceptable and what's not. Yeah. And you don't have to get emotional about it, and you don't have to go into fear. It will change every area of your life, because your dog is actually walking that spiritual path with you to help you embrace that and embody that. And now you just did it. So if you just did it here, you can do it anywhere. And you didn't even have to think about it. So don't think about it. Just take what you learned right here and bring it into every area of your life. And that's the, didn't even realize I would be doing it, but I'm creating a walk and sync program. It's going to be a 7-series teleclass. Okay. Where we go over the 6 secret steps that I use with every single client that brings them into a place of being able to embody, and they're harnessing their own energy to literally unleash their own potential just through working with their dog. Wow. Yeah. How awesome. Yeah. So you're doing a 7-series teleclass. Putting it together now. We're going to launch it in 2012. Okay. And it's going to it's the walk and sync program. Okay. And it really is dealing with, so many times clients come to me and it's like, oh, the dog is this, the dog is doing that, the dog is that. And just from having worked as a fitness trainer for years and understanding people and their psychology, and then working with dogs for years and seeing where they're at, it is always so fascinating to me, because I will leave a session and my clients just look at me and go, how did you know all that stuff about me from working with my dog? And I say, I didn't know it, but it showed itself, and you were transferring this to your dog. Yes. So we really needed to get clear about what's your stuff, and would you clean it up right now? And you've seen the evidence in 1 hour of working with your own dog. Yep. But being completely honest and being willing to take responsibility and accountability for what your part of it is. Right. Your entire relationship just changed, Because you can feel when people's energy fields are closed and they're in fear and they're putting it on the dog and it has nothing to do with me, but it's all the dog. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then you can feel that expansion when they actually look at themselves and go, oh, my God, I didn't know. Like, well, I guess that's why God gave us dogs, because they're like silent therapists, you know. They're not going to sit there, they're not going to judge you, and they're not going to make you feel bad, but they will show you the truth of you if you let them. Yes. You know, and
they do. They tell us the truth of us.
It's amazing.
If we know how to listen, if we're paying attention.
Yep.
You know, they mirror us. They reflect our weaknesses and imbalances.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a huge part of their gift to us.
Yeah, and it's our willingness to be vulnerable. I mean, every animal I've ever met is amazing in mirroring back, and every child I've ever met. You know, and that's probably why I love kids and animals so much, because they always tell the truth. Yes. We've become so tactful and politically correct and this and that we're not calling each other on our BS. Yeah. And if we just did, it would change our world by leaps and bounds. Yes. But I think it starts with us first. It does. You know, I mean, it starts with us being willing to be vulnerable enough and, you know, being willing to look at your dog and say, well, my dog's doing this, and then they're doing that, and they're not doing this, and say, if I looked at myself, what could I see in me that I'm actually seeing in my dog? You know, because if you're willing to be vulnerable enough like that, and you're not afraid to see what it is and to say, oh, wow, I am so sorry, I didn't know. I'm going to do something different now. See it now. Yeah, you have Einstein, and Einstein did say, you know, insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. That's right. You know? Yeah. And so if we're vulnerable enough and we can bypass our egos enough to recognize that it's okay to see these things. I mean, I'm just the kind of person, I'm like diving in. I'm like, show me what I don't know. You know, show me where I'm off base. Show me, like, just keep showing me. Not so I can feel like a bad person. Wow. But so that I can see it. Mm-hmm. I can acknowledge it. I don't have to hide it or suppress it or make it come out in weird, strange ways at different times with people that it's not even appropriate to come out with. Yeah. And it gives me an opportunity to acknowledge it and choose something different. But if I keep suppressing it, if I keep making it, it's somebody else, oh, it's the dog, oh, it's my kid, oh, it's my husband, oh, it's my wife, oh, it's my boss. Yeah. It's like, no, probably somewhere in there, there's something that you're doing or you're holding on to that you don't want to acknowledge. Yeah. But if you did, it could change everything so fast. You know, and that's, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to put anything on this system because you can always say, well, you're the inventor of it and that's why you see it. But just literally stepping back, detaching from the whole thing, that's the beauty of what I see when I watch people utilize this system. They're willing to be vulnerable and they're willing to come into their true power in a vulnerable way so they don't have to overcompensate for anything. And I watch them and their dogs leave me in such an expanded, loving state because they're like, I got it. I can take my dog to the park now. I can let go of what I was thinking. I can let go of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's like everything is different. Yeah. So it's amazing. I mean, like I said, it's not anything I would have thought of. I just want to create something that would never harm a dog again. Thank you. Yeah. So, you're welcome. You're so welcome.
Thanks. So you have a special report called Walk and Sync, 8 Secrets to Unleashing Your Dog's Greatest Potential and Your Own. Mm-hmm. How can people get that report?
You can go on to the Dog Walk and Sync. We have a newsletter, and it's up at the top right-hand corner. Okay. And sign up for our newsletter. And I didn't tell you this, Val, but I'm adding a second surprise to that.
Ooh, okay.
So we've got the 8 secrets to walking in sync with your dog. Okay. And then I've got 5 tips that will change 90% of your dog's health issues that you can do right in your kitchen.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
And within 1 week of trying any one of these things, you will absolutely see a difference in your dog's health.
Cool.
Okay? So when you sign up for the newsletter, both of those reports are going to be sent to your email.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm sure that people, our dog lovers here, are wanting to know how can they get started. And I think, did you have something special for our listeners for the Dr. Doolittle show?
I do have something special for your listeners.
Okay.
There's going to be a link on Val's site to Dog Walk and Sync, and when you click on her link, you're going to get a 10% discount off of your first purchase.
Cool.
Yep. So go to Val's link, go to Val's page, go to the Walk and Sync link on Val's page.
Okay.
And when you purchase your system, you're going to get a discount code for 10% discount on your first purchase.
That is so fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
I love it.
I know how much your listeners love you, and I know how much your listeners love their animals and are just looking for, any way that is another avenue of opening up an even deeper connection with their animals.
Yes.
So I'm so grateful to you for what you're doing and for what you're sharing with people, because it's, your job is, hey, I know we have this veil up that we think they're different than us. We can't communicate with them. And I know what changed in my life as a result of sort of taking that veil off and recognizing, whoa, there's a totally conscious being in here that I know I've been conditioned and I've been told that they're less than us, that they can't talk, and all those kinds of rhetoric. And, the gift that I know that it was for me to open up that channel again, that is just part of all of us. I mean, we all have it.
Yep.
Creator created us not in separation, created us in unity so we would all be able to help each other survive and live and thrive.
Yes.
And I just, I know what a gift that is, and that you're sharing that with people, and that you are out there so boldly in all of your glory and all of your radiance, sharing this. It just opens my heart so huge, because I know that when I started probably about 15 years ago, people looked at you like you were crazy. Yeah. And now with all these amazing programs that you have and making it so easy and so digestible for people, it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So thank you.
It's all a labor of love, as you know.
I do.
Okay, my dear. So let's wind it up here. So again, everybody, dogwalkinsync.com. Go pick up your newsletter, and I'll be setting up. I will have a web page to send you guys to. It'll be on my website, valhart.com, under products. I think that'll be good, and it'll also be on our blog, so you'll be hearing more about it as well. And also, too, we love to, I started doing these 5-minute makeovers, and I only felt confident enough with it after a little while, because I started realizing, okay, these dogs are changing so fast. I can't believe it. So I think we need to document this. So we love to hear, your feedback. We'd love to hear your experience about it. And we also love to receive videos if you want to do befores and afters. We absolutely love to see that, and we will post it on our site. Because really my main goal was, look, I can only train probably a certain amount of people a year. Sure.
But if I give people the tools and if I give them the videos, how many dogs can change, in a year? It's astoundingly exciting. So how to make it so simple.
Yeah.
So in 3 steps, you will be able to make a lot of changes with your dog in very gentle, loving, humane ways.
I'm so excited, Alecia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's leave it here, and we'll catch up again. I want to find out more. Let us know when your teleseminar starts and your humane training programs and all that. I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thanks so much, Val.
Okay.
Ditto.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Bye.